Liam Cohen is building the Jaguar staff brick by brick. It requires patience and a little nuance. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you watch them or listen to them. Make sure you tap into that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode of the show that is sponsored and brought to you today by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to those everydayers that join us every single day. And if you're here for the first time, hopefully you come back and hang out with us. All right, here's what we're going to talk about. Two words that rhyme: energy and synergy. Those are the things that I'm noticing about this staff. The staff is super energetic. These guys, every one of these hired, all of the coaches, which we'll update that too here in the middle segment. The energy level and the synergy, meaning they all seem like they're on the same page. They are all people that Liam Cohen seems to have a working relationship or a healthy respect for. And I hope that's the case in most coaching hires, but it's a little bit different with this one because a lot of people have a lot of opinions on who they should hire, why they should hire them. And I think it defeats the purpose for you to sit here and have some sort of dream team of coaches that you want. I don't want to handicap the guy who I'm giving a chance or I want to treat him like he's handicapped. I'm giving him a chance to start fresh. We do that with people we think need help. I don't think he needs any help, at least until he shows us that he does. So for right now, I'm going to trust that he's doing the right thing. But we're going to start at the top with the word of the day. The word of the day is alignment. We have talked about alignment. No, I'm not talking about odd and even fronts. I'm not talking about whether you use a 0 or a 1 as opposed to a couple of 2 gappers in the middle of your defense. I'm not talking about whether a guy is a 9 wide or whether your strong side end is a 4B or a 4I or 5 technique. What I'm talking about is alignment within the organization, including the staff. I think it's extremely important. And if you haven't been privy to hear the podcast in the past, one of the things that I discussed a whole bunch and got a lot of positive interaction from with the fan base is accountability. And it just seems like everyone was kind of pulling in different directions. And what happened is that sort of caused me to have to look into some things and ask people how did they feel walking around in the building every day. And it's like for a while, everyone kind of felt like, man, it's just that everybody's trying to cover themselves and, it's not working. And see, those things really come up when the team is bad more than anything. I mean, when the team is good, it kind of, I remember when they won a playoff game a couple of years ago against the Chargers, Trent bear hugged Doug, jumped up in his arms, and he was happy. And I think it was very, very genuine. And when things are going good, it always seems like everybody's in step, right? So when things turn around and go the other way, that's when you really, really can tell whether or not people are in step. And I never got that feeling. I didn't get that feeling when they fired the coaches. And just imagine this now. Imagine this. They went 9-8. Made the playoffs. They went 9-8 again, and they fired the entire defensive coaching staff. So I want you to think about 4-13 and think of how bad things really were this year. Now then go back or look back retrospectively and say, man, we were really 9-8. We fired everybody. And then we went 4-13. So the thing that I'm really, really trying to get through to a lot of people is at the time that they fired the coaches after a consecutive 9-8 seasons, which they had not done in forever, like have 2 straight winning seasons, everyone had their eye on a higher prize. And that's why it was acceptable. And that's why everybody was like, nah, we're trying to get to the next level. Well, this year they're 4-13, and now everybody's saying we just want to get back to respectability. I wonder how many Jaguar fans, if I asked them right now, if they had a 9-8 season, would they accept that? And it's funny how the things that you throw away, and it's funny how the things that uh, you don't appreciate when it gets worse, you actually do appreciate those things. So what's the big difference? The difference is it just seemed like everything was out of whack. It seemed like no one was taking accountability. It seemed like no one was answering questions. And I've gotten this word a lot. I almost made the word of the day accountability, because most people say, well, who, if they have this three-headed monster with EVP, my man Sam hit me up and said, if they have the EVP and they have the coach and if they have the GM, we don't know who's responsible. So responsibility, it's funny when people say the word responsible and when they say the word accountable, because we only worry about that when things go bad. Nobody cares who the credit, and nobody cared who was calling the plays when they went 9-8 and won a playoff game and went to the playoffs, right? Which was Doug's mistake, because the very next year he comes out and he goes, Press is calling the plays. And no matter how many times I say it, nothing actually changed. Their process didn't change from year one to year two. And that was told to me by someone who was on the staff at Philly, that the same thing, it's the exact same thing that he's doing. And they were on the staff here. So they're doing nothing different. The only thing he did differently was announce it. And you gave the fans that thing that they hold on to. And what happens is those things start to take on a life of their own when things are not successful. So alignment to me is very, very important. And I don't want to wait until they hit a bump in the road or things go bad for them to start talking about the importance of everyone being on the same page. Because if you don't have everyone on the same page and all you're going on is the fact that everyone has the same goal, those are two different things. Everyone having the same goal means they want to win. So when you start out winning, if you're not on the same page, when you're trying to go a little bit higher, then you end up getting what the Jaguars got in year two, between year two and year three. When you have alignment, it's all of us. We're all in this together, because that is what you're going to need to turn it around. Sometimes you get in those situations because of injuries. Sometimes it's bad luck. Sometimes it's a whole bunch of different things. It's a tough schedule here. It's a tough little stretch that you have to go through. It's figuring it out, trying to learn each other, trying to get the chemistry correct. And you don't turn around a situation if you're not all in line. So I like the fact that they're starting it organizationally, from whether it's the GM down to the coaching staff. I'm going to give you some names and tell you why I haven't given you more names. And that's because I'm waiting until the staff is announced. And then I'm going to talk about what Tony Boselli's role is, and why I think some people have a blind spot when it comes to him and exactly what it is that he is going to be doing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll talk about that more here as we continue to press forward on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by PrizePicks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports, with over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded. PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. All right, here's what you got to do. You figure Saquon Barkley is going to at least score 1 touchdown, or maybe Jalen Hurts will, right, on the tush push. There you go. That's how you start figuring out what you're going to do. Figure out how you think the game is going to go. Check out the promos to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On NFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize pick. Run your game. We're moving along here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here. We're talking alignment, the importance of everything being in line. And it's not necessarily to make sure you are successful. It is to make sure that when you aren't successful, folks still stay on board. Everyone still knows what the mission is. And they keep going because, as much as enthusiasm we have about this hire, there'll be days or there'll be weeks where you guys question something. It's just natural. That's just the way it is. Even if they won 12, 13 games, the first year you might not question it, but then after that, you'll question it. Nick Saban was questioned when he was at Alabama. If they lost the game, which didn't happen very often, people started saying he was done, right? There were people on TV saying that he was finished, and then they won a national championship after that. So it comes with the territory. All coaches get questioned because it's usually based on the expectations and the hope and the optimism that fans have, and they just really want that to happen. And that happened too in the naming of Tony Boselli as the executive vice president of football ops. I don't want to poo-poo this and make it sound like he's just a figurehead. Tony's a very, very smart man. Okay. And I liken this to like something I said yesterday. John Lynch and John Elway. John Elway was selling cars, man. He owned some car dealerships and they made him president of the team. John Lynch was on TV and a team that he never played for, San Francisco, which is close to where Palo Alto, where he went to college, they made him the general manager. Chris Spielman has been very, very important in the Detroit Lions organization as a former player. I love the fact that they have a great player who's also an ambassador for the city, who's also been around the team, who's met with GMs, who's traveled around. And when people don't understand that when you do these pre-production meetings, when you travel around, folks talk to you, and folks talk to Hall of Famers differently than they do people like me. They just do, because they know that there's a whole bunch. It's like me, if I cut another barber's hair, or if I ain't cut nobody's hair, but if I go get a haircut, I can speak a language to a barber that a regular person can't. And it cuts through a whole bunch of stuff. So I suspect that Tony has had a very up close and very fulfilling way to view all of these different organizations, even the ones that win and even the ones that lose. And it's probably helped him determine some things. And this is also not news to anybody. I heard he's been kind of being groomed for this for a couple of years. So when you think of it from that perspective, and you understand that this dude has been around this organization, been a part of this organization for a long, long time, it makes a whole bunch of sense to me. And what it does is it's another person who is here every day, who this is a position they didn't have last year. I've been saying that, I've told people forever, go look at the Chiefs roster and see how long it has taken for guys to get jobs, and see how many people, see how many eyes they have in their organization handling every single thing. What this does is, I think it alleviates Liam, and to a certain degree, whoever the new GM is going to be, and Ethan Waugh, according to Boselli, is going to get an interview for that. It just, there's a lot of things that go on every day that we don't all know. And I don't know all of those things because I've never done that job, but I've talked to enough people to tell me there's a lot that goes on every single day that you don't know. There's some people that were going, well, what has Ethan Waugh done? Well, you don't know what he did or what he didn't do. You don't know that Trent Baalke listened to him, but that even though they were friends and Baalke hired him, you don't know that he didn't want to do this and Baalke said, no, we're doing that, or Baalke didn't listen to his suggestions, or none of us knows that. But I do know this. I do know when they fired Trent Baalke, that this year, this is the time of year. This is not where the hard work from the scouts happens. That happens all season. But this is the time of year where a lot of work and a lot of the things that they have done are generally put on the table, right? And we're talking about how this staff is going to take shape. We'll get to coaches in just a second, but we're talking about the front office staff right now. This is where everything hits the road, because there's free agency, there's Senior Bowl, there's Shrine Bowl, there are personal workouts. There's a lot of information coming in on guys, on players, right? A whole bunch of information. So if Trent Baalke gets fired 2 weeks ago, who's supervising that? That would be Ethan Waugh. It doesn't stop. This is the Super Bowl basically for the scouts, and nobody's paying attention to it. They wanted him gone so bad. What do you think that all of those people that worked under him, whether you're a team scout, whether you're on the road, whether you're a pro personnel guy, so all of those guys, what do you think? They just willy nilly? You think they're going to barbecue every day? You think they're just sitting around? No, they are still doing their job, and there's someone who is still directing them, and there's someone who is still collecting data, and there's someone who is still building player profiles, and there's someone who is still meeting with Liam Cohen and the coaching staff to determine who can do what. There's someone who's still looking at their own contracts, players that they have to make decisions on prior to the league year starting. They have to do all of that stuff. So what has happened is Ethan Waugh has been doing that on a daily basis, and maybe he's been doing a good job at it, and they've seen that, you know what, this guy might be a little bit more of an asset than we know. This is what I'm talking about with alignment. And maybe he's under a constant evaluation, just like Richard Angulo was when they retained him, and Heath Farwell was when they retained him. So I wouldn't make too much of it. And I don't think Ethan Waugh, just because he was, connected to Trent Baalke, I wouldn't make the mistake to say that he is Trent Baalke. I just would not do that. In terms of the coaches that the Jacksonville Jaguars apparently have hired, defensive backs coach Anthony Perkins, who was the defensive quality control coach in Green Bay. Obviously, he was with Coach Campanile. Not an extensive NFL background, although he did have some experience years ago before he went to college to become the Oregon State Beavers defensive back coach. But he was at Colorado State. He did a little bit of time in the NFL with the Tampa Bay, where he was the assistant to the head coach in 2017, 2018. He spent time with the Bucs in 2016 as a part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship. But mainly, this is relationship. This is alignment. This is a recommendation from probably from Campanile. And to be honest with you, this is what I'm talking about. So when people keep asking, who do you want to be this guy? Who do you want to be guy? Why don't they bring home Keenan McCardell? I would love Keenan McCardell to get a chance to be an OC. We're seeing other tight ends coaches, wide receivers coaches, and so on and so forth being called up to do that. I would love Brian Hartline. And people go, well, he's a college guy. Brian Hartline coached at Miami with the Dolphins before he went to Ohio State. So I would not, like the Arizona Cardinals just hired the offensive line coach from Arizona State. But the point that I'm making with that is it's totally up to Liam. And of course, you guys will say, hey man, that's obvious. We know that. But no, these things are important. You want coaches that have like-minded understanding, like-minded approach, so that there's no difference in what these players are learning. And then you want the coaches to be able to work with people that they've worked with, that they know. If you trust Campanile, then you got to trust Campanile, not to just deliver what he does on the field, but to be able to build his staff too. The Jaguars are also hiring Cardinals pass game specialist Spencer Whipple. I believe the first time I heard that name was from me O'Brien from 1010XL. And then I heard it when Liam Cohen asked Christian Kirk, hey, Spencer Whipple, yeah, good friend of mine. And, so that let me know that Kirk's probably going to be here, even though they may have to work out something with his contract. But now you're getting a guy in Spencer Whipple who kind of comes from that Kingsbury tree a little bit. And they're known for the passing game. They're known for getting the most out of the quarterback. He's going to be the quarterback's coach. He's also the son of former UMass head coach and longtime NFL assistant Mark Whipple. To show you how old I am, I remember when Mark Whipple played football, and now Mark Whipple's son is coaching Trevor Lawrence. I remember Mark Whipple was like a rookie. Damn, getting older, man. Can't believe it. But yeah, so Spencer Whipple is coming in here, and once again, he's considered, from what I have heard and what I've been able to juxtapose, he's another young, up-and-coming guy that everyone says is extremely smart and knows how to get stuff from these players. He knows exactly what it is he wants, exactly what he's looking for, and it lines up a lot with what head coach Liam Cohen wants to do. The one thing I do notice about all of these guys is they have the same energy. They have the same energy. And whether or not that energy turns out to be what we hope it is, doesn't matter as long as it's the same right now. That's the only hope we have that this turns out to be as good as we think it is like once again, everybody has to be on the same page with the same sort of approach. And what that is that creates this word, this thing that we all talk about. That is culture. We'll discuss that in the third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you in part by GameTime. Looking for tickets for the next big event? Maybe last-minute tickets to the big game this weekend? Well, if it's not that, but it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, find the right ticket at the right price. It can always be a headache when you're trying to do that. But with GameTime Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With GameTime Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket sales. I have used GameTime, and I am so happy with it. I would not be telling y'all about it to this extent if I was not. You can get tickets to just about anything you want. I take the just about out of any and everything you want. They're selling tickets. GameTime has it. Ready to make your next event even better? If that's the case, download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Man, what time is it? You know it's game time. It is absolutely game time. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We talked about the word of the day, which is alignment. Talking about staff taking shape. Before we get to energy and synergy, let me explain that. A lot of folks have asked me, "Will you give me your wish list? Give me your wish list of coaches." I would have to know if Liam Cohen has a relationship with those guys, because that is counterintuitive to this whole thing I've been saying the whole time of how do you build alignment. What happens with this, if this goes the way I believe it can go for the Jaguars and they have success, some of these guys are going to get poached. Yeah, they're coming for your staff. All they got to do, if they win 11 games next year and they're a headache for some teams, trust me, somebody's going to get a job. They're going to get a promotion. And we're not going to be like the Tampa Bay Bucks and go, "Oh, woe is me, they're taking our coaches." We're going to say that means we're doing something right? So then you would have a culture established. All you got to do at that point, and I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier than just throwing stuff out there. You go and you pluck a guy that you know fits your culture. Maybe he aligned with somebody you have years ago. I'll give you a case in point. John Morton, who got hired with the Detroit Lions. It's already on record that years ago, once John Morton left, once Detroit started having success, Coach Dan Campbell gave John Morton a bunch of credit for the development of their team and the implementation of a lot of their sets, a lot of the things that they do, and gave him a lot of credit for coaching up Ben, the coach now with the Ben Johnson, the coach with the Chicago Bears. It's almost as if what happened was Ben Johnson got a promotion, and you just went and got Ben Johnson's professor to come back and be your new OC. I think that is called culture. I think that is called like-minded people, teachers, folks that you respect. The offensive line coach, Hank Fraley, all of the coaches on the staff, whether it's Inkstrand, whether he's still there or not, or Mark Brunell, they all are going to respect him because they know him. He was there. And this is what happens. And sometimes you don't have to take a guy directly associated with anybody to fill your staff, but you know exactly what it is you're doing, how you're doing it, and you go out and get a guy to come in and do it. Sometimes it works the other way, where the defense isn't quite where you want it to be and you want to get better and you want to improve, and you do what the Eagles did. You go, "Hey, Vic Fangio, come in. This is what we have. We're trying to do this. How can you get that done? Can you help us with that?" And the reason why it's important, because remember this, there were people in Miami media included, that wanted to run Vic Fangio out of the building. But Vic Fangio is a hero where he is now. And there were people in Denver before he left there that wanted to run him out of the building. It ain't nothing wrong with Fangio. It might not be anything wrong with the Dolphins. It might not be anything wrong with those people who were on the staff in Denver. But what it tells you is that if you're not aligned, then these things can happen. And what starts to happen? People start pointing the finger at trying to figure out what the problem is. So now you're trying to identify problems instead of trying to identify solutions, when really the thing that happened was you weren't aligned in the first place. Just because a guy can coach doesn't mean he needs to be coaching your team, depending on what direction you're going in. And I think it's really, really important for me to not play make-believe and pretend. I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's not what I do. I'm not going to play make-believe and pretend, even though it's fun. I'm not going to do that and just throwing names out there trying to sound smart, when if I ain't never talked to Liam about what he expects, then it all becomes counterintuitive to what we are trying to do, and it'll take on a life of its own. I'll give you an example. I explained this just this morning that somebody said, well, we can't keep Ethan Waugh because of familiarity. I am not the familiarity king. In fact, I'm a dude that I know it seems like we're talking about familiarity when it talks about him hiring a staff. No, that ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about keeping something that ain't no good, but the only reason you're comfortable keeping it is because, well, who else you gonna get? You remember that old attitude? If you fire Trent Baalke, who else you gonna get? Somebody. Well, if you fire this coach, who else you going to get? I remember I heard somebody say that about Mark Richt. You fire Mark Richt from Georgia, who you going to get? Oh, they got Kirby Smart. That's who they got. So I'm just, from familiarity, when you haven't won anything, it's never a good thing. I said, that's not why they're doing it. I explained earlier why I think they're doing it, because they saw him work firsthand. But I just think it's a mistake to think that we know exactly why things are happening. That's not why they're doing that. And to sit here and pretend, because what happened is the second it doesn't work out, then you'll go back to that one little thought that you had, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the situation. And then somebody told me this morning, they say, so you're telling me that out of all of these, you think Ethan Waugh? I said, I didn't say that he was the best candidate. Where'd you get that from? The reason why I do these shows the way I do them also is to make communication easier, so we don't sit here and go down rabbit holes and start rolling downhill with something. That's why I try to help people like increase their listening and increase what they hear, and understand that if you ask somebody what their favorite condiment is and they say mayo, then you should not assume that they don't like mustard. That ain't what you asked them. So the one thing that we will do is to not add confusion to this situation. I'm going to give Liam Cohen and I'm going to give this new staff a chance to do everything that they want to do. And then the gold in it, the gold, not gold, but gold, G-O-L-D in it, is to find and extract the good parts of what they've done, timestamp it and bookmark it with your comments. And then if it doesn't work, at least then you'll know where they may have gone wrong, and that'll tell you how they got to get right. That is how I came to the conclusion 2 years ago that Trent Baalke had to go. That's exactly how I came to that, because I always felt like they shouldn't have kept him in the first place, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and he certainly proved us right. All right, man, make sure you tap in. Any other coaching hires, we'll make sure that we let you know about that. Also, once this is all done, I'm sure that they'll probably get all of those guys together and decide who they're going to let talk, whether it's the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, the OC who hasn't gotten here yet. Hopefully we'll get that good offensive line coach. Hopefully he's somebody that's still coaching, right? And they can, or it's somebody in Tampa who kind of may file some sort of grievance saying, hey, man, he ain't letting me go. You know what I mean? But if anybody's wondering about that too, like why can't they hire the assistant offensive line coach, is because I think the only thing that folks look at as promotions are guys going from position coaches. The league, I think the league and the bylaws or something says, okay, going from an assistant coach to a coordinator is you got to let them interview. It's unethical to not going from a coordinator to a coach, but everything else can be considered a lateral move. I think even if you put pass game or run game coordinator on it, I don't think that's enough to move the needle, but we'll see how that goes. If something changes, we'll let you know, but hang in there with Locked On Jaguars because it's your team every day. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL too, because we give you a double dose of NFL action. Title rolling early in the morning, like a double shot of espresso, and then me in the barbershop every single day. You guys take care. Thank you for your support of Locked On Jaguars. We appreciate you. It's going to keep going. Y'all keep going with me.